We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the Wadawurrung people, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
G'day, it's Chris McKenzie here at WorkSafe with another episode in the HSR podcast, helping you achieve better health and safety outcomes in your workplace. This is a series offering advice, guidance and support on a range of topics for health and safety representatives, or HSRs for short, employers and employees from industry experts and leaders in OH&S. It's all brought to you by WorkSafe, Victoria's occupational health and safety regulator and workers' compensation insurer. Our job is to reduce workplace harm and improve outcomes for injured workers. But the role of health and safety representatives is so important because WorkSafe can't be at every workplace all the time. HSRs are WorkSafe's eyes and ears in workplaces across Victoria. In the last few episodes of the series, we've heard about establishing designated work groups, how health and safety representatives are elected, and what powers they have under the OH&S Act and regulations. Make sure to catch up if you've missed any of the first 5 episodes. In this podcast, we're going to dive a little deeper into the legal obligations employers have towards HSRs in Victoria with Alyssa Duncan, who's a Senior Legislative Services Advisor with the Legislation, Policy and Information Services Division here at WorkSafe, and she's also an HSR. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Alyssa, could you tell us a little bit about yourself first and what you do at WorkSafe in your kind of dual roles here?
Thanks. Yeah, so I've been in HSR for about 2 years now, and I signed up because I wanted to represent the division I was in, and it's made up of a really great group of people, and we were coming out of COVID, and there was just a few issues arising about how people felt about safety, and I thought I could help them out by being the eyes and ears within WorkSafe itself and the issues that were going on around the time about coming back to the office and the fears people had around that. And that sort of just expanded to other issues around health and safety. And it's been a really great experience in that WorkSafe has a great network of HSRs. So being part of that network and hearing about all the issues and experiences of other HSRs in other areas and the health and safety issues that arise there has really helped in my learning and representing my division and helping people understand sort of what rights they have and what health and safety obligations are owed to them and what they can do to make their experience at work better.
It's great to have that support and then be providing that support yourself. And you work in the Legislation and Policy and Information Division here at WorkSafe. So tell us a little bit about what that division does.
So this division looks after the legislative framework that WorkSafe's responsible for. So that's the OH&S Act, the Work Act and the Dangerous Goods Act. And we manage the reform process. So if government wants to amend the acts or improve the way we do things, we manage that reform process, and that covers all the regulations that sit under those as well, and the guidance that we provide for employers and employees as well.
So we're talking about a pretty technical topic today in terms of obligations for employers. So it's great to have you with us. Can you talk a little bit about why employers have those obligations towards HSRs, I guess, and why it's so important and what the Act does say?
Well, the Act is very detailed in its provisions for HSRs, and in particular for the training of HSRs. As we all know that knowledge and understanding is power. That is probably why it's the first thing I wanted to spend time on. As training for HSRs can come in different forms. There is the initial 5-day training as well as a refresher course that can take place at least once every year. But this has been something that has been contentious, and WorkSafe's position is that it obliges the employer to pay for one refresher course in each subsequent year that they hold office.
Now, that's not just allowing the HSR time off work to go and do the training, isn't it? It's actually paying for it.
Yes, it's actually paying for the course and making sure that the HSR is paid for their entitlements that they would have otherwise earned, as well as the cost of any associated expenses such as accommodation. It's also important that the course that the HSR attends is decided on in consultation with the HSR and the employer. There are also from time to time courses or forums that WorkSafe approves to be conducted in addition to the standard training offered, and these will be identified as approved under Section 69 of the Act.
Now, while training is important, it's certainly not the only obligation that employers have to HSRs. What else do employers need to do?
So the employers must allow an HSR to have access to information. So this is relating around hazards and incidents that have happened in their work group. They must allow them to be present in any meetings they may be holding about hazards with a member of that work group or any independent contractors. They also must provide facilities and assistance to the HSR. So that might look like providing internet access or a lockable space for their papers and access to equipment that they may need to deal with an issue such as like a noise machine, or allow them to take photos of an incident or hazard and such.
So what information is an HSR entitled to get?
Information about relevant hazards and the health and safety of the people they represent. This doesn't include medical information though, but you can think about inspector entry reports, technical specification, minutes of health and safety committee meetings. These are the types of information HSR should have access to.
And the other one mentioned there was time off work to be able to fulfill their duties.
So an HSR shouldn't be disadvantaged anyway for taking on the role of HSR. Therefore, WorkSafe's position is that HSRs, when exercising their powers as an HSR, using their entitlements or carrying out their role under the Act, they must be paid as if at work, including shift or allowances that they are entitled to.
Is that a set time per week or per month?
No, as each workplace is different, there is no set time. We think about what is reasonable for an HSR to fill their role, consider the type of work, the risks, the effectiveness of risk controls, the size of the company or the area that they represent. So there are many variables. An office may have different requirements to a construction site, for example, given the types of hazards that are present at each. It is not expected that an HSR should have to carry out their role outside of their core hours.
So, Alyssa, what if an HSR is a shift worker and the training is outside of their normal hours, for example?
Good question. So HSRs are entitled to receive their normal expected earnings during the course attendance. So this includes shift work. So, for example, a person may normally work 2 days a week, but the course is 5 days that runs consecutively. Employers should alter rosters or shifts to accommodate any HSR who attends the training. If it is necessary for the HSRs to work hours in excess of their normal working hours, additional hours must be compensated in the same way that other hours are treated. When an HSR and employer agree, time off work may be taken in lieu of payment.
So if I was an employer, what facilities and assistance should I be providing to an HSR?
As mentioned, every workplace is different. It's hard to have a standard answer here, but consider access to a private room or space with desks and chairs, a telephone, computer, even a cabinet or USB, access to photocopying, meeting rooms to meet with the members of their DWG. It may also be relevant with amendments to the law to provide a camera or technical equipment to measure items. Travel options to travel between sites if DWGs are across sites as well.
So, Alyssa, what are some of the risks for employers if they don't meet these obligations?
These are legal obligations under the Act, so there are penalties associated with non-compliance, and this would be enforced through WorkSafe's compliance and enforcement policy.
And talk a little bit about your experiences, Alyssa, as an HSR. What would you say to someone if they were thinking about diving in and helping improve safety in their workplace?
I would encourage everyone to put their hand up to be an HSR. It really is a role that you can put in as much and as little in as you see fit. So it's not something that obliges you to spend a huge amount of time on it. It's really about the issues that people come to you with and you giving them the information they need to pursue it or assisting them in any way that you see as appropriate given your role. So it's really something that you can take on yourself and how much you want to take on, but it allows you to talk to all the members in your DWG and encourage them to value safety as much and value their own safety in ways that they could be safer and happier at work to make them want to come into the office or come to their site as much as they can.
And in terms of employer obligations, obviously you're an HSR here at WorkSafe. Could you talk about how WorkSafe as an employer has helped you fulfill your role as an HSR?
WorkSafe has a great HSR network that covers all the different sites that WorkSafe has. So it really does bring together a wide range of people from really different areas. WorkSafe has set up quite a strong committee framework. So we have our local committees where we talk about issues relating to different areas from people with similar types of jobs. So those that are in the office versus those that are out on site, for example. And that all gets filtered up to a central committee where we raise issues around health and safety that might be consistent amongst different areas. This allows us to make sure that we hear about other issues that are going on in other areas and talk to management as needed to raise issues that maybe need a bit of a push. WorkSafe also has HSR social meetups to help us expand our knowledge on health and safety in ways we can really take the HSR role to the next level.
Some good tips for employers there. Alyssa, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's just recap some of the main points there. Under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, employers have a number of specific obligations to or in relation to HSRs. And it's really important that we get this right. So let's bring in WorkSafe's Manager of Industry and Representation Support, Anita Ford, to tell us more.
An employer must allow HSRs for the DWG to have access to information that the employer has relating to actual or potential hazards arising from the conduct of the business or plant and substances used in the workplace, the health and safety of members of the DWG that the HSR is authorised to represent. An employer must, if the members of the DWG consents, allow an HSR for the DWG to be present at an interview concerning OHS between the member and an inspector, the DWG member and the employer, or the employer's representative. An employer must allow an HSR, if authorised to represent independent contractors and their employees, and with the person's consent, to be present at an interview concerning health and safety between the independent contractor or its employee and an inspector, or the independent contractor or its employee and the employer or its employer representative. An employer must allow an HSR to take such time off work with pay as is necessary or prescribed by the OHS regulations for exercising their powers under Part 7 of the OHS Act, or taking part in any course of training relating to OHS that is approved or conducted by WorkSafe, and of which the employer is given at least 14 days' notice. An employer must provide such other facilities and assistance to an HSR for the DWG as is necessary or prescribed by the OHS regulations to enable the HSR to exercise their powers under Part 7 of the OHS Act. An employer must allow a person assisting an HSR access to the workplace unless the employer considers that the person is not a suitable person to assist the HSR because of insufficient knowledge of the OHS Act. An employer must ensure that a written list of each HSR and deputy HSR for each DWG is prepared and kept up to date. A copy of the list must be displayed at each workplace or otherwise be readily accessible to employees.
You can refer to WorkSafe's guidance on powers of HSRs or the previous episode in this podcast series for more information. And for further info on today's topic, you can check out the links in the text below. This has been another episode of the HSR podcast brought to you by WorkSafe, helping achieve better health and safety outcomes in your workplace. Next time, we're going to be joined by the Director of Health, Safety and Wellbeing in People and Culture at WorkSafe, Christine Gatt, to discuss a topic relevant to all Victorian employers. That's how to resolve occupational health and safety issues in a workplace. Until then, if you have any OH&S issues or concerns or to lodge a case, please contact WorkSafe's advisory service on 1800 136 089. You can also head to the WorkSafe website to subscribe to our monthly newsletter for HSRs. And if you are an HSR in Victoria, WorkSafe has a dedicated support team available whenever you need help. Just email hsro@worksafe.vic.gov.au.
Please note, this information is based on laws applying in Victoria only. It is correct at the time of recording, but is not to be relied upon as legal advice. This episode does not outline all the legal obligations under Victoria's occupational health and safety laws.